Yeah, I am. Test, test. Now I'm not. Test, test. I was muted. Yeah. Yeah, so unmute. I'm unmuted now. Um, I'm gonna mute for just a minute. Guys, bear with us just a second. Okay. Okay. All right. Bear with us, guys. We're about ready to go live here. Something's off. Well, look here. Something's off.
So that's the one person who went
Yeah,
to the
yeah, yeah,
webinar.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. All right. We'll go ahead and get going here. Okay, let's do it. All right. So I'm Rod Khleif, and today I'm going to show you how to do multifamily real estate and candidly how to make money in multifamily real estate. And so this is titled, what did we title this? The Real Path to Financial Freedom Through Multifamily. So let's get into it. We're going to have a lot of fun today. So what I'm going to cover today is kind of a fast track overview of how to do this business. You know, it's like a crash course in multifamily investing, as it were. You're going to get a ton of value today, and I'm going to bust a lot of myths today. You know, there are a lot of misconceptions around this business and how to make money in this business. And so we're going to talk about a lot of those today. And I'm going to answer the most commonly asked questions in this business that I get literally almost daily teaching this stuff. So you're going to get a ton of value, like I said. So, you know, let me ask you a question out of the gate here. You know, what would it mean for you and your family if you could build income that comes in every month, whether you're working or not? And that's exactly, you know, what you get from multifamily real estate. You know, it's one of the most proven, predictable wealth building vehicles there is. And you know, you create income today and you're building literally generational security for decades. Now, you see, most people rely on a job or the stock market or a retirement account that rises and falls with the economy. But what they don't have is something, you know, steady, something tangible, something that can weather literally any market. And that's where multifamily properties stand out. Now, when you invest in multifamily property, you're tapping into multiple income streams under one roof. And even if one tenant leaves, the building still makes money. Um, Now, and that's what creates really true stability. That's, you know, that single family homes and traditional investments can't match. And here's the best part. As your rents go up, your income rises, you know, and as your property improves, the value rises. It's different than single family where you're relying on comparable sales. You know, here you're building cash flow and appreciation at the same time, but it isn't just about making money, it's about having choices, you know, things like retiring earlier, taking care of your parents, giving your kids more opportunities, or just having the freedom to stop worrying about income. Um, you know, so years from now, your children, even your grandchildren, are benefiting from the decisions that you made today, you know, with an asset that pays them, protects them, and gives them security instead of financial stress. Now, most people end up leaving bills or expenses behind. Multifamily investors leave income. And this is, and bear with me one second. I'm just going to turn my air conditioning down a little bit. Just one second here. Okay. So, you know, people always need a place to live. And that's the beautiful thing about multifamily. And with, you know, decent sized multifamily, you're not managing the tenants, fixing toilets, handling day-to-day issues. You know, that's all taken care of by third-party property management companies. And you know, if you're looking for a way to protect your income and create long-term stability for you and your family, if you want to build something amazing for your family's future, then multifamily investing is one of the smartest moves you can make. Um, by the way, Raul, I want to bring these monitors up or the camera down, one of the two in the future. Okay, please make note of that. So every month, and by the way, guys, I do these every Saturday, for a couple of hours, 2, 3 hours every Saturday. Now, next weekend's my boot camp, so I won't be doing it next Saturday. And I'll tell you about the boot camp. You can come for like $47, so it's kind of a no-brainer. It's 2 days of training with nothing being sold, and the bonuses are insane. But so next weekend I won't be doing it, but then every Saturday after that I'll be doing it again unless I have a boot camp. But every month cash flow gives your family a safety net that you can count on, even in tough times. Multifamily gives you safety from empty units because you don't have, you've got other units paying rents, and those rents rise with inflation. That's the thing. Yes, we've got inflation, but the good news about that, even though there's a lot of bad news, the good news is your rents go up. Your debt stays the same. So inflation is not going away, but you're protected from it. So, if you've got some questions today, I'd like to know what you'd like to learn from me today. Get a notebook, something to write on, because I'm going to throw a lot at you today. I'm really going to add as much value as I possibly can. So, a little bit about me. I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long term. Right now I own thousands of apartment units as well as senior housing. But in 2008, I lost $50 million. I don't know if you knew that or not, but and it sucked. Let me tell you, I'm going to be honest with you. I got literally wiped out. And what I realized in that crash, I call it a seminar. I don't call them failures. It's only a failure if you don't get the lesson or you don't get back up. But in that it was an expensive freaking seminar. Let me give you that. But in that seminar, I learned that multifamily did much better than single family. It was a single family that pulled me down. And the other thing I realized is that cash flow is literally the most important piece when you're looking at real estate. And that's why my podcast is called Lifetime Cash Flow. Now, if you're not listening to my podcast, highly recommend you start. I'm blessed to say it's the largest in the world for real estate, commercial real estate. But anyway, we'll get to that in a second. We're also going to talk about why mindset is really the most important piece of your success in anything. It's not the technical stuff I'm going to cover today. It's the actual get up and do it stuff, So a little bit more about me. I basically built my portfolio back up bigger and better. And, I realized that apartments are much safer to weather a downturn than houses. And candidly, I think this year will probably be the best buying opportunity in our lifetimes for multifamily. I'm going to talk about that a little more later as well. So I started that podcast called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. And like I said, I'm blessed to say it's the largest real estate podcast really in the world now for commercial real estate. We're around 30 million downloads. And also wrote a book called How to Create Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Properties. It's right here. It's a #1 bestseller in 3 categories, and I've literally given away tens of thousands of copies of it. And I'll tell you how you can get a copy in a little bit. And now my mentorship students, they're called my warriors, my coaching students. They own somewhere around 300,000 multifamily units under my tutelage, something I'm very proud of. We're counting, and we're at about 270,000 right now. I know we're missing a ton, so I think it's closer to 300,000. And they also own a lot of senior housing, which is something else I'm getting into. They own a lot of industrial flex space, storage space. They own self-storage, student housing, you name it, mobile home parks, all of it. So something I'm very, very proud of. And I also give back. I founded a foundation about 26 years ago, and I fed over 150,000 at-risk children in the Sarasota, Bradenton area for the holidays, kids that wouldn't have a holiday meal. I've given away, tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local at-risk kids that didn't have the basic supplies for school. And, don't get me started on that. And, I've provided thousands and thousands of teddy bears to local police departments for their officers to keep in their vehicles if they encounter a child that's been in a traumatic situation. Now, I guess I'm bragging a little bit, but I'm proud of this stuff. People ask me, why do you do this if you have all that property, and I'll tell you why. My father and uncles were all PhD teachers. They were professors. And, I've discovered, in the fairly recent past, probably in the last 10 years, that my purpose in life is to coach and to teach. And just what an incredible blessing it is. And I will tell you, I by far have the most successful coaching program really in the world for commercial real estate. And we did an analysis, and pretty certain that our results inside of my Warrior Coaching program eclipse all the other programs combined. But it's not about me. It's about student success. So, what I want to teach you today is when to pump the gas on this business and when to hit the brakes, okay? Now, you're going to hear a lot of new terms today. Syndication, underwriting, NOI, cap rate, so let's talk about that. Syndication. And it's a very intimidating topic. We're gonna drill down on that. You're gonna hear about underwriting. And by the way, if you sign up for my boot camp next weekend, you get underwriting software. That's one of the bonuses. So you can do some analysis. You're gonna hear about NOI, net operating income. You're gonna hear about cap rate, right? So these are all terms you may not be familiar with yet, but you're gonna hear about all of them. You're going to hear about what a GP is, a general partner. You're going to hear about what an LP is, a limited partner. Okay, you're going to hear about depreciation. So these are all things you're going to learn and hear about today. Now, your biggest expense basically living in the United States is taxes. And you do what I'm telling you, you won't pay taxes. You can do what's called a 1031 tax deferred exchange, and you can just roll up your property every couple of years. It's called a 1031 tax deferred exchange, and you can just roll up your property and push your taxes forward. And candidly, if you never sell, you never pay. So you defer them into the future. So that's one thing. You also have what's called cost segregation, where you accelerate depreciation. I'm going to talk about this more in the future as well. And Trump brought back in bonus depreciation. So literally your first year write-offs are extraordinary. So these are all things we're going to chat about. And we'll talk about the tax effect of a refinance. There isn't one. So it's that whole BRRRR strategy that people talk about with single family. We do it with multifamily. Buy, renovate, refinance, repeat, right? That's the BRRRR strategy, BRRR. I think that became famous on the Bigger Pockets podcast, but it's buy, right? Renovate, refi, and then do it again, repeat, right? So that's the BRRRR strategy, and you can do it with multifamily. You hear, like I say, you hear about it with single family, but you can also do it with multifamily. And the thing with multifamily is you get multiple streams of income from multiple units, and that creates scalable, safe, compounding returns. Okay, properties, when they're leveraged safely, let your money grow faster than in many other investments. Now, what else can you buy that does that? Not stocks, not crypto. Candidly, even buying businesses. Tenants are paying off your debt, right? Tenants pay back, your out-of-pocket cash that you raise from investors. Now, these deals take money, okay? Multifamily obviously takes money to buy, but it doesn't have to be your money. That's the beautiful thing. My students and I raise money for our deals. We've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, literally. My students have, I have as well. Investors are tired of the volatility of the stock market and crypto. It's so volatile, right? So I'll teach you how to raise all the money you need for your deals. Multifamily properties can also be held in trusts or family LLCs to make the transition to the next generations easier. And so when you're creating, what you're creating is cash flow today, equity tomorrow, and frankly, security forever. Now, you're going to learn the math about how to actually make $10,000 to $20,000 a month in this business. And that's not BS, it's real, okay? And I'm going to show you that, and I'm not exaggerating. So, 10 to 20K per month, and I'm going to show you how to do it, okay? I'm going to show you the mistakes that you want to avoid. Mistakes like the ones that cost me $50 million. But I'm going to tell you, one deal can change your life. Even a small deal, let's say a small deal would be, say, $3 million. You can charge what's called an acquisition fee. Those are typically 3 to 5% is what you charge of the purchase price as an acquisition fee. Investors expect you to collect it because you're doing a lot of work. And so, what's 5% of $3 million? What is that? 150,000? I believe that's 150,000. It's not a bad day, I can tell you that. And that's a small acquisition fee. I've literally collected millions in acquisition fees. Three, I should be able to do that math in my head, but I took the short bus to school for math. You have to know it, but you don't have to be an expert. Oh, yeah, 150,000. Fantastic. All right, so that one of those can change your life, right? Now I'm going to show you how you can find low interest rate debt for these buildings. Now I don't build things yet, although I believe in it. It's something I'm very much looking into. My son is going to get his general contractor's license. I like to buy things that are already built. You know, I very often buy them for less than it costs to replace them, and then we add value to them and increase the rents and exponentially increase the value. We're able to force appreciation. It's called value add buying. We're also going to talk about the myths in this business versus the facts. Now we've got a lot to cover, so let's get into it. So the first question I want to ask you is, what's your number one roadblock? And I'm going to share the most common roadblocks. So is it money? You know, you think you don't have enough money to do this thing, this business, or maybe it's fear. You know, so what is fear? A lot of people think it's F everything and run. I like to think it's false evidence appearing real, because typically what you're fearful of is the emotion of fear, not what's actually causing it. You know, so maybe it's fear holding you back, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Or maybe you feel like you don't have enough time. You know, maybe you've got a consuming full-time job, but see, very often fear pops up and slows you down. So another one, like I said, is time. People feel like they don't have enough time. So we're going to talk about each one of these. Or maybe you feel like you can't find any deals. Deals are hard to find. Maybe that's your issue. You know, what you're going to learn, or maybe it's money, on the money side, right? What you're going to learn is, like I said, it takes money to buy multifamily, but it doesn't have to be your own money. And I'm going to show you that there's a ton of deals in trouble right now. I'll just tell you this. I talked to my SEC attorney last week, Merrill Calliser, and at my boot camp, he does the syndication. Next week, he comes on Sunday and does the syndication piece on how to syndicate. We're going to talk about that a little bit today too, but obviously he goes much deeper. At my boot camp, we go much deeper on all this. But he told me he's got 6 clients that just had a foreclosure last week on an apartment complex. So the proverbial, you know what, is hitting the fan right now. Okay, and there's a lot of deals in trouble because of high interest rates, and you know, a lot of operators got adjustable rate debt. So those deals are in trouble. Meaning there's some incredible opportunities. Now, if there was ever a time to get into this business, it is right freaking now. And I've got scores of students that have created lifetime cash flow for themselves and their families, even with a full-time job, with a spouse, with kids, you know, with soccer and church. They've done it on the side. So there's absolutely no excuse here. You can absolutely do this on the side with a full-time consuming job. Now, I mentioned fear already, okay? Again, fear. And that's typically what holds most people back. But you got to push through in spite of it. The most successful people on the planet have fear. Now, we achievers, we call it stress. But when you push through in spite of the fear dissipates. Action mitigates fear. So again, action. You got to take action. And if you learn to recognize it and you take massive freaking action, you're brave enough to push forward and the courage to actually act on it, that's how you become wealthy in this business. My most successful students aren't the smartest. They don't live in the biggest towns. They don't have the most money when they start. They just change their story and take massive freaking action. Now, everybody's got a story about why they're not successful. You know, that's like a breaker switch, so they don't feel terrible about themselves, okay? And so, you know, if you've got one of those stories, change it and just go do it. And that's the only thing slowing you down is your story, okay? And everybody's got one. You know, I've had numerous stories over the years, but you got to dissipate those to move forward. Now, if somebody tells you this is a get-rich-quick scheme, however, multifamily real estate, run, because they're full of crap, okay? But this is a become super freaking wealthy over time thing. But you got to take action, like I just said. So why is multifamily so excited? Again, I've owned over 2,000 houses, and we're going to talk about the difference between multifamily and single family. And so I'll never own another house by myself at all unless it's a third, fourth, fifth house for me. It's never going to be another rental house, okay? And I'm going to explain why when I answer that question later in this presentation, because that's a question I get all the time. Why is multifamily better than single family? Well, respectfully, I've got a lot of credibility to argue that topic, but stay with me because I'll answer that question towards the end of this presentation, okay? But here's one reason why multifamily is fantastic. Freaking cash flow. Okay, like I said, that's the reason my podcast is called Lifetime Cash Flow. It's all about cash flow. Okay, you make it to the first of the month, you collect your rents every first of the month, and you can dramatically increase the value of your property with your efforts. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. Okay, so you can get that value way up. I'll give you examples of that, extraordinary examples. See, in single family, the value is based on comparable sales. Okay. So but with multifamily, you can force the appreciation. With comparable sales on single family, you have no oversight on what other houses sell for. So you can't do a thing about it. So you can't force it there. With multifamily, you can force it through your work. What I mean is you force more equity into the deal, right? Significant equity and significant appreciation. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And there's nothing out there at all that provides the tax benefits like real estate. The depreciation that's possible with multifamily is extraordinary. Like I said, cost segregation, and you just get incredible write-offs. That's the reason, Trump has brought back bonus depreciation, which I just mentioned, which is incredible. So with cost segregation and bonus depreciation and 1031 exchanges, I mean, my God, I haven't paid taxes in years. It's the reason Trump didn't want his tax return shown, because he hasn't paid taxes, because he's got tons of real estate legally, okay? The tax write-offs on your first and second year of ownership are just extraordinary. They're huge. And again, this is why 90% of the world, literally, guys, 90% of the world's millionaires made their money in real estate or invest their money in real estate. And I'll talk about that more again in a minute. But let's talk about how you can force appreciation, okay? You literally can force it through your efforts. Appreciation, typically you think about that as just the value of something going up, right? Like a single family house. Oh, it's appreciated a little bit. Well, let me give you an example. Let's say you've got a 100-unit property. Hang on. Let's say you've got 100 units, okay? 100 units. I know that sounds intimidating right now, but trust me, that's nothing. Again, my students own, I'm pretty sure, around 300,000. But let's say you've got 100 units, and let's say you just raise the rents 25 bucks. Okay, 25 bucks per unit. Not a huge bump, right? Not a significant bump. Here's how the math works. And this is how you're able to force appreciation on a property. Again, we call it value add. Okay, value add. I mean, maybe you did some work to improve the property. So you've got $25, right? So you multiply that $25 times 100, 2,500. And then you annualize it. Times 12 is 30K, right? Right? That's 30,000 per year. Now, in our business, we have something called a capitalization rate, cap rate. Okay, and that's how you value, that's one of the largest ways that you value commercial real estate. And in this case, let's use a 5% capitalization rate. Okay? So we take that 30K, 30,000, and we divide it by 5%. And that $25 increase, okay, is a $600,000 increase in value, because of a $25 increase on a 100-unit property, okay? Now, this is why we love this freaking business, okay? $600,000 by raising the rents $25. It's extraordinary. And then, again, this is why we love the business. There's so many ways that you can get that income up. You can do reserve parking spaces, okay? We did this as an asset I have in San Antonio. I've got 296-unit asset. We call them assets. You got to learn the nomenclature, by the way, the verbiage. And they're called assets. So we got a 296-unit asset in San Antonio. And we asked the tenants if what we did is we painted numbers in the parking spaces. Okay. We didn't even do it. We had a towing company pay for it to have the towing contract. And we told the tenants it's 25 bucks a month. And first come, first serve. We'll put a reserve sign. We'll actually paint reserved on the park. It didn't even cost us to do that. We just painted it on their space, reserved. And first come, first serve. We had 100 people. You pick your parking space, the one that's closest to your unit, 25 bucks a month. We'll mark it as reserved. We had 100 people take it. Okay. So 100 times 25, just like the last example I gave you, is 2,500 or 30,000 per year, right? Now this property was trading at a 4 cap at that time, 4%. So you take the 30K divided by 4%, and that was a $750,000 increase in value for some paint that we didn't even pay for, okay? Now this is not extraordinary. This is what you can do in this business, okay? We had a really good manager there that did a fire inspection when we first took over the property, and she discovered 60 pets. And we love pets, but you're going to pay 25 bucks a month for your pet. Okay? And the same property, okay? Times 60. I don't know what the math is. I just know the end result on that was about a $450,000 increase in value for the freaking pets, okay? You charge a little bit. You can have storage lockers. You can, charge for covered parking. You can put in tech packages. You can bill back water. Okay, you bill back water or utilities if the owner's paying any. And all of that goes right to the bottom line and increases your value exponentially. This is why we love this freaking business, okay? And this is how you add value in this business. And of course, the taxes, my God, the tax benefits are just freaking insane. I mean, this is why real estate's the number one thing for that. And again, that's why Trump didn't want his tax returns released, because you'd show he didn't pay taxes legally. I don't pay taxes legally, okay? Because you own a ton of real estate. I haven't paid taxes in years. I have depreciation because I own a lot of property. So you're able to write off, a portion of your property value every year against your income, and you can accelerate it through cost segregation. So what is cost segregation? Let me take a second and talk about that. Cost segregation. So, segregation. Actually, I'm a good speller. You wouldn't know it. Okay, cost segregation. So normal depreciation, which is something the government allows you to do on investment property, goes 27 years, okay? And so what it allows you to do is, let's say you've got this is the ground and here's your property, okay? On the above the ground, you're able to depreciate all the stuff above the ground because it's got a remaining life, okay? It's a remaining life. Now, what cost segregation allows you to do is to take out the different pieces of the property, the roof, the walls, the floors, the carpet, the windows, you name it, and anticipate the remaining life on the different parts of the structure and and accelerate those, okay? The doors, the floors, and you're able to accelerate those. And so you have somebody come in and estimate the remaining life. The cost segregation typically costs you about $5,000. And they'll say, well, the windows have 5 years left, the roof's got 3 years left, the floor's got whatever left, and you accelerate the depreciation, and you have incredible first-year depreciation. I mean, I've seen as much as 70% of your investment come back the first year. And then there's bonus depreciations, which allows you to take it in year one. I mean, it's just fantastic. And again, this is why 90% of the world's millionaires either made their money in real estate or invest their money in real estate, because of that right there. It's the tax benefits, extraordinary tax benefits. Now, there are 4 types of investors that I come across, okay? And we'll see where you fit in here. The first one is no money, okay, or maybe a few grand, okay, no money. The second one would be little money, and they want to do deals on their own. They want to own 100% of it. That's their goal. But they don't have a lot of cash. That'd be the second one I see. The third one is little money, but you want to syndicate. So what does that mean? So syndication is where you pool money together. And the biggest investors in the world raise money through syndications to do this. Okay, when you see an apartment complex, it's not one guy that owns that or one woman that owns that. It's somebody that pulled together a group of investors to raise the money for that deal. This is how my warriors, my coaching students have done it. It's how I've done it. Again, they've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, so have I. Okay, to buy these larger properties. Like I raised 12 million for a 200 unit in San Antonio just a while back. And so that's the third one. The third one wants to syndicate. Or JV, joint venture. We're going to talk about both those things today. The fourth one is somebody that wants to just be an investor, passive. We call that a limited partner or LP. And none of these are bad or wrong, but maybe that's a dentist, a doctor, a chiropractor, a business owner, just too busy to do the activity. I've had thousands of people invest in my deals, okay? So who is in which of these groups? Now I'll keep it confidential, but tell me in the chat. Do you have the chat up here for me? You do. Okay. Tell me in the chat which of these groups you might be in. 1, 2, 3, or 4. I'd just be curious to see. Are you sure you got the chat up here for me? I don't see it here. I see the count, but I don't see the chat. Is that going to show up for me somewhere? Okay, bear with me a sec, guys. Here's the mouse if you want it. Oh, there it is. Okay, that's the chat. Okay. All right, so it'll show up there. Okay. Okay, got it. 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Perfect, perfect. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Okay. So, how many of you would like to raise money to do these deals? If so, put yes in the chat for me. Okay, if you'd like to raise money to do these deals. Now, we're going to talk about that today. Not go into greater detail of my boot camp next weekend, but we're going to talk about that. Unlike one-time inheritance payments, multifamily properties just continue to generate income for your kids and your grandkids. It gives your heirs really tangible, stable assets instead of stocks or Bitcoin that are volatile. Like I said, you don't just pass down an asset, you're showing heirs really wealth creation. You're teaching future generations how to manage assets, understand finances, and grow wealth responsibly, right? So let's talk about how you can create freedom with cash flow, okay? Now, all things being equal across the country, typically your net cash flow on an apartment unit, on one unit is $200, okay? Now this is, it's going to vary across the country, but that's an average that you're going to end up with typically, okay? That's going to be more in some places, less in some places, but that's the average. Now again, this is a general statement. Of course, if you're in New York or California, it's going to be different versus the Midwest or Florida, but the average is about $200, okay? So this is an average. Now, let's say if $10,000 a month causes you to be able to leave your job. To leave your W-2 job. You need 50 units, right? You need 50 to be able to do that. Now, I want to give you a caveat. That means you own those 50 units by yourself, okay? Now, I'm going to teach you how to do this business with partners so you don't have to use any of your own money. So if you've got partners, obviously, then you're going to need more than 50 to get to that 10,000, but this is how this works. But let me ask you this. I don't know about you, but I'll take 50% of something over 100% of nothing any day, right? Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. Now, if it's 20K that causes you and your spouse to be able to stop working and have freedom, then that'd be 100 units, right? 100 at $200 a month. But again, that's if you own them yourself. If you raise the money, like I'll teach you how to do, then it's going to be, and again, these are rough numbers, and it's going to be more than that. But again, my students own, we're pretty sure around 300,000 units, okay? So you can do this. I know it's scary and a little intimidating when we talk about it at first, but you can get to your freedom number very quickly in this business. And like I said, one deal can change your life. One apartment complex can literally change your life. Now, you still have to be careful, okay? You got to buy right. You got to manage right. You've got to underwrite your deals conservatively, which is what I teach and go into great detail next weekend. You got to be conservative. And when I say underwrite, you're going to have to put your deal into a spreadsheet or some deal evaluator software like what you get for free if you sign up for my boot camp, and you're going to look at what the rents could be. You're going to look at where the expenses could go. We call it normalizing expenses, and keep pushing the boot camp, but that's what I go into that next weekend. We go through line by line. You're going to do what's called, you're going to do, well, so that's normalizing. You're going to normalize the income and the expenses, because what you're going to get from the broker or the seller very often is garbage. You've got to put your own numbers in there. I teach you how to do that. You're going to stress test. What's the break even, for example? You want to figure out what that is, okay? But that's what you're going to do. Now, here's the thing. This business is a team sport. You're not going to do this yourself. I mean, yeah, I bought a couple thousand houses myself for the most part, but you're gonna get around other people that are doing this. This is why my Warrior coaching program is so successful, because you're gonna want someone on the team that's got some analytical chops. It's not Rod, okay? I took the short bus to school for math, okay? But you're gonna want somebody that's got some analytical chops, underwriting chops, that's willing to double down and learn how to underwrite this stuff. Now, you need to have an understanding of it. But like for me, I've got partners that I've had over the years that do this. One was a CPA. The one I've got right now is super analytical. I don't do the underwriting. I can't even spell the word spreadsheet. I'm kidding, but I don't love it, right? You want somebody on your team that does love it, that you can throw in a room with a spreadsheet and throw raw meat in from time to time and they're happy, okay? That's what you want, right? But you're still going to have everyone on your team check the math. Very important. You want multiple people looking at your deals, and you look for reasons not to do the deal, because I want to tell you, sometimes the best deal is the one you don't do, okay? You want to be very careful with this. If you're tired, you're likely dehydrated. I'd suggest you have some water. Okay, so where was I? So you want a stress test, right? And again, this business is a team sport. There's a lot of different hats you can wear. And then you want to be conservative. You always raise all of your CapEx up front. So what is CapEx? Capital expenditures, okay? And you're going to have to learn all this verbiage. In the back of the manual for the boot camp next weekend is a whole glossary of all the terms you get. But CapEx, so what is CapEx? CapEx is the fix-up money. How are you going to fix the property up, right? You're going to put new parking lot in or cover it, new roof, new paint, interior improvements. That's CapEx. So that's the fix-up money. You're going to raise that money, though. You're not going to try to have the cash flow pay for that. You always raise the money for the fix-up. That's a newbie mistake. We're talking about new paint, new interiors, new countertops, new appliances, new floors, whatever you plan to do, new fixtures, things of that nature that you fix up. That's all CapEx, okay? And you raise that money, okay? And then you get the rents up, and then you get the value up, okay? But you raise that CapEx money up front. You don't say, well, we'll do that through cash flow. No way. You're going to raise that money. And that's what you do in this business is you raise the money for these deals. And again, these deals take money. It doesn't have to be your own money. There's so much money looking for a home, that's either scared of the stock market, tired of Bitcoin, but the raising money is how you do this. And like I say, my students have raised hundreds of millions, so have I. And you can do the same thing, okay? And it's just building relationships. I know that sounds intimidating. How am I going to raise $100,000, $1 million? Now, of course, you got to build relationships. And of course, you got to learn this business, okay? So you can speak competently and congruently to potential investors to get them to invest in your deals. But here's the sequence to get from 1 unit to 100 units, okay? So the first thing you want to do is you got to select your market. And you can't be all things to all people. Now, the most successful people I know in this business stick to one market, okay? Then the next thing you got to do is build a team. Now, we're going to drill down on all these here in a minute, okay? And this is a team sport. You're not going to do it by yourself. I bought 2,000 houses mostly by myself, but I had my brothers help me, I had employees, but it was mostly me. But you're not going to buy apartment complexes by yourself. But here's the beautiful thing. There are so many different hats you can wear in this business. You could be the one that does the underwriting, okay? If you love numbers. You could be the mouthpiece like me. Maybe you're outgoing. and you build the relationships. You're an extrovert. Very often the underwriting is an introvert. You can be the outgoing person, builds the relationships with investors and sellers and brokers, right? Potential partners. You can be that person. Maybe you've got some construction experience and you could do the asset management, or you've got some project management experience, or just regular management experience. You can do asset management, which is what you do after you buy the property. Somebody's got to manage the property management company. And we're going to talk about that more in a minute too. Or maybe you're the one that finds the deals, right? Or maybe you do investor relations and you raise money. So many different pieces you can do here. Deal sourcing is important. We're going to do that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So you got to figure out how to find the deals. But these are all the different hats you can wear. And so, there's definitely a place for you, whatever it is. Now, I'm going to give you a broker script in a minute again. In a minute as well. If you want to talk to brokers, you can mail owners in a particular market. You talk to brokers. You can, look for rundown properties, drive around. There's lots of ways to find deals, but you've got to have all that set up. So the first thing is your market. Then you put your team together, okay? And now on your team, you want complementary skill sets, right? So you typically want someone that's outgoing with someone that's analytical. That's the best partnerships I've seen in this business. And I've interviewed hundreds. I'm over 1,000 interviews on my podcast. The best partnerships I see are an analytical person with an outgoing person. That's a match made in heaven. It's a successful dynamic because you need both, okay? You need someone to develop relationships, but this business is primarily numbers. It's empirical, primarily numbers. You get the numbers right, you ask all the right questions, it's pretty hard to make a big mistake. And so there you go. And I'm going to be bringing in one of my warriors, and we're going to dissect one of his deals in a little bit as well. But so then you've got to find the funding, your money, right? And you're going to have a relationship with a loan broker, okay? And one of those named Tyler Carney DeVord will be teaching next weekend at my bootcamp about the different types of financing that are available for multifamily. And then once you find a deal, you're going to have to do the due diligence. Okay, we're going to drill down on this stuff here. You're going to have to do the due diligence and really check it out. Look under every rock. Make sure, and you're going to take your time with that. Okay. And make sure you check everything when you're analyzing, evaluating a property that you're close to buying on, and you got to do it right. Look under every rock. You're going to make every needed phone call, and then after you buy it, you're going to asset manage it, right? You're not going to just say, "Oh, my work here is done because I hired a property management company." No, you got to manage that management company. Okay, you got asset management. So that's part of the sequence of events in this business. And again, I know it's a little intimidating, but that's how you scale this business. Now let's talk about some myths, okay? You might hear people say, "Oh, I've got to be in the Sun Belt no matter what. I've got to be in South properties," but that's not critical. Now I love the Sun Belt because there's 80 million baby boomers getting old and getting cold. I mean, getting into senior housing as well. We've got our first assisted living facility because there's 10,000 people a day turning 65 in this country. I do love the Sun Belt, but I'm going to tell you the number one thing with multifamily isn't that. It's what do you think the number one thing is? Put in the chat what you think the number one thing is. Raise money. Yes. Tell me in the chat what you think the number one thing is with multifamily. Just curious if let's see if you get it. Very good. Very good. Jobs. That's right. Jobs is the number one thing with multifamily. Okay? In any market, you want to make sure that there are multiple employers. Okay? No one-horse towns. And I'm talking even military bases, multiple employers and multiple industries. Because, if you've got a one-horse town, like my ex is from Belleville, Illinois, which is a suburb of St. Louis, and there's a military base there. And I was looking at some property there and I backed out because if it's a one-horse town and that horse gets sick or that horse dies or that horse leaves town, you're screwed, okay? So because jobs are the most important things. You want to see multiple industries, employment industries, and you want to see multiple employers. Now, a little later, I'll show you a sample deal package so you can see how we present a deal, and you're going to see how we present the jobs and the employers in a particular market. Okay. So I had 800 houses along the Gulf Coast of Florida. Okay. And uh, here in Florida, 800 houses. And a lot of what I discovered was a lot of my renters were contractors, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, and that work fell off a cliff in 2009. They didn't have work, okay? So now when I buy an asset, an apartment complex, I will look at where the people are working, and I gauge their employment for recession resistance as well. So I take it to another level. I won't invest in a blue state. Life is too freaking short. They're overregulated. They have rent controls, rent caps. They're anti-landlord. And God help us, that new mayor in New York, Mondami, he's going to create a nightmare there for landlords. They're very landlord averse. They're also overtaxed. You know, highest taxes in the country are New York and California. Life's too short for that brain damage, my friends. I won't do it. For me, it's a personal thing. But you know, you've got to check that, because you know, if you're going to ramp the rents, you've got to make sure they don't have rent controls in place, rent caps in place, because you won't be able to. Now, I like secondary and tertiary markets. For example, I live in Sarasota, Florida. I've also got my place here in Miami, but Sarasota is a tertiary market for Tampa, okay? And I love the area. I like between Orlando and Tampa, cities like Lakeland, Plant City, other tertiary markets. I love those smaller markets, so keep that in mind. The next myth is that you've got to have a paid staff to do this business, okay? That's wrong. You don't, okay? It's BS. Now, you're going to be building relationships with brokers, property management companies, loan brokers, you know, attorneys, CPAs to do your cost segregation, etc. But this is your external team, okay? This is external. You're not paying them unless you do work with them, okay? Now, you are going to partner with people to do different pieces of this business, okay? Because this is a team sport, right? So you're going to partner with people. And like I said, underwriting is a piece. You need an analytical person. You're going to need somebody that's process driven or a great manager. Now, you know, these are the most common team roles you're going to have in this business. You're going to have someone that finds the deals and someone that underwrites them, someone that asset manages them. But so you want to get around people that are doing this, right? You know, get to know your local meetup group, meet people there, find a team that you might want to align with. You know, this is one of the advantages of my Warrior coaching program. There's dozens and dozens of teams that have taken down deals, but you can do that in your local market. Go to a real estate investor club meeting, meetup group. This is how people do this business, you know. And but the next thing is the next myth is brokers won't talk to a newbie. Well, I got to tell you, there was some truth to that a couple of years ago when the market was really hot. You had to prove you knew what you were doing. But I've got a script I'm going to show you here in a minute. And, you know, of course, you got to be honest and you got to build credibility and you've got to follow up with brokers. But don't be a black hole when they send you a deal. You know, let them know why it didn't work for you. You know, and you need to learn this business so you can speak the language. You need to learn the nomenclature. Like I said, come to my boot camp next weekend. The manual is about that thick. Okay, now you have to print it. It's a PDF, but it's about that thick. In the back is a glossary of all the terms you need to learn. But you know, I suppose you could chat GPT it, but you want to learn the different acronyms in this business, like NOI, you know, net operating income, okay, cash on cash return, COC, you know, things of that nature, IRR, the internal rate of return. Okay, these are all things I'm going to talk to you about, but you got to learn the verbiage so that brokers take you seriously. You know, you don't call them properties or apartment complexes, you call them assets. Now, I'm going to tell you, brokers used to be the belle of the ball, you know, and they're not anymore because sales are way down, which is why there's an incredible opportunity right now. There's about $1 trillion worth of debt coming due right now. And if someone's got debt that's got a balloon payment on it, that's what I mean by that, they have two options. They either have to sell or they have to refinance. Sales are way down and refinancing is incredibly challenging because, so again, they either have to sell or they have to refi. Sales are down 90%. Okay. Interest rates are high. Okay. Rates are still high. And so both those options are very, very challenging. Like I said, my SEC attorney had 6 foreclosures clients last week. I mean, in 1 week. Okay, so there's incredible opportunity. So anyway, bottom line is brokers are much easier to talk to and speak with right now. And then there's a myth around, funding the deal. Like you can't do the deal if you don't have the cash. Well, or your credit's not perfect. See that both those things are baloney. Because one, you can raise all the money you need for these deals, and you're not qualifying for the deal. The property is qualifying. And that's how these deals are taken down. Now, you'll have to have someone that qualifies for the debt. They're called the loan guarantor. They're also called the sponsor. I've done it numerous times, but they'll get a piece of the deal for my wife and I actually, but my ex-wife, and they'll get a piece of the deal for that. And you'll also have someone that puts up what's called the at-risk capital. Okay, that's the earnest money, the down payment earnest money, the due diligence costs, the finance charges. So at-risk capital is what you have to come up with to put a property under contract, and that includes the earnest money. That includes any due diligence costs. So let's say you're going to inspect the property and the roof looks a little rough or the AC units look a little old. You're going to pay to have a contractor to come out there and check it out. And that's the at-risk capital. And then you're going to have some finance charges, like when you're ready to get your financing, you got to pay for the appraisal, you have to pay for legal fees, and that could be a pretty decent amount of money. But that's called the at-risk capital. And someone will put that up for you. I've done that numerous times, as much as $600,000. But I get a slice of the deal for doing that. Whoever does that gets a slice of the deal. I just put up $25,000 in at-risk capital for a deal we just bought. Okay, and then after you put up the at-risk capital, you'll raise all the equity you need to come up with to close on the deal. Now, this is kind of a little unusual. So what is equity? Okay. Now I know if you're in the single family space, let's say you got a house that's worth 100K and you owe 50K, then you've got 50K in equity, right? Well, in commercial real estate, equity means the money out of pocket to buy the property. Okay. So it would be the down payment. Equity would in our world, just so you know the nomenclature, equity equals the down payment, the capex that you're raising, any money you're going to raise to fix up the property, any operating reserves you're going to raise. We always raise about 6 months in expenses in operating reserves when we're raising money, just in case what hits the fan. Closing costs, your acquisition fee, you're going to raise that from your investors. Okay, so this is all equity. This is out-of-pocket money, okay? And then, of course, you're also going to have the loan on the property, okay? And that's what's called the capital stack, the loan and the equity, okay? I know I did that kind of fast, but again, I go into all this in much greater detail next weekend, but that's called the equity, and you're going to raise that from your investors, okay? Now, let's talk about how you make money in this business for a minute, okay? We're going to talk about how you make money. Hello. A little late on that. I should have told you that right out of the gate. Number one is cash flow. Right? That's why my podcast is called Lifetime Cash Flow. The next thing is appreciation. And again, I talked about that. You can force the appreciation, which is incredible. I'll give you another example of this. I've got a 101 unit asset in Dayton, Ohio. It's actually a suburb of Dayton called Beaver Creek. We just sold it recently. It got hit by a tornado a few months after we bought it. Yeah, it was destroyed. All 101 families had to move. Luckily, nobody died. A couple of people had to have surgery. No kids got hurt, thank God. But I was there the day after it happened. And I'll just tell you, there was a woman, and Raul will remind me, I want to have slides of this next time, of the tornado damage, so I can show them. But there was a woman that was emptying out her apartment because all 101 families had to move. They shut the water off. They shut the electricity off. And I said, were you here when it happened? She said, yes. I was downstairs sleeping, and my son, thank God, his phone went off with the early alarm system, because by the time he got downstairs and woke me up, his bedroom was gone. I look up, and all you see is a freaking tub. His whole bedroom was gone. He would have died for sure. But anyway, the moral of the story is that was 101 units, okay? 101 units, not a really big complex, actually. Everybody had to move. We had to rebuild it. We got $600 rent bumps. At that time, that was a $10 million increase in value. Hello. Now that's an extreme example, obviously, but that's what's possible in this business. So you're going to raise money from people that want a secure return on their money. They're scared of the stock market. You're going to raise that from investors, right? So you're going to have a loan guarantor. They'll get a piece of the deal, okay? They're also called the KP, loan guarantor. And I always misspell guarantor, but let's see if I get it right. Anyway, loan guarantor. They're also called a KP, or key principal, okay? And they're also called a sponsor. And they're going to sign on the debt, okay? And so here's the thing. You can literally do one of these deals with little or none of your own money. And that's not BS. It's real, because you raise the money, okay? It's not like some no money down guru bullshit. It's real. And that's how it's done every single day. That's how my students have taken down around 300,000 units that we believe, okay? Doing it exactly this way. Raising that money, raising that at-risk capital from an investor that gets a slice of it. Bringing in a sponsor or loan guarantor to sign on the debt. Which again, my ex-wife and I have done many times, and then raising that equity, right, to buy these big apartment complexes. You drive by these big apartment complexes and you wonder how it's done. That's how it's done, okay? And the next myth is that you need to do comprehensive due diligence, okay? You need to do a rent roll, you need to do a lease audit, whatever. Okay, you've got to sample the leases. But when you're doing the comprehensive, I'm sorry, that's not a myth. I'm sorry, I misstated that. You have to do comprehensive due diligence. You've got to get a rent roll. You got to do an audit of the rent roll. You need to do a lease audit. You got to do, sample the leases. And you want to get what's called the trailing 12, which is the last 12 months profit and loss statement. Now, and you're gonna do that lease audit. Now, property management companies will do this work for you. They'll audit the leases. They'll help you walk all the units you're buying. In fact, on that note, I see that my warrior is here. Let's bring Nelson. Go ahead and turn your monitor on. There he is. Hey, brother, how are you?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good, buddy. Good to see you, man. So
Likewise.
Nelson and I are gonna go through. Got Warrior Nelson Diaz on the line here. And for those of you, I'm going to repeat the question and the answer. So those of you I've got phones going here. We're on TikTok, Instagram, X, YouTube, you name it, all over the place right now. And this is all recorded for people to watch later as well. But we're going to go through a deal that Nelson closed on not that long ago. Let me find my notes here. And we will go through this. One second here. There it is. Okay. So, now, first of all, Nelson, when did you join the Warrior program?
I joined in August of last year.
August of last year, okay.
Yep.
And so where is this asset that you bought? Where is it located?
It's in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay, so it's in Tulsa, okay. And how many units is it, buddy?
64.
64 units, okay. And let's see, what I want to ask you. Okay, yeah, this is an important question. When was it built? What's the year built?
It was a 1981 vintage.
1981, good vintage, okay. Let's see. And what was the purchase price?
4.6.
4.6 million. Okay. I know that's scary, but that's okay. Don't be scared by this. All right, let's see what else I want to ask you. Okay, when you purchased the property, first of all, how much equity did you raise?
1.8.
1.8 million. Okay. And so did you get new debt or assumed debt?
No, it was new debt.
New debt, okay. What sort of debt did you get?
It was just regular bank debt.
Bank, okay.
75%.
75% loan to value.
Yep.
Okay. LTV. All right, super. And so was this a value add deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a Class B property at one point that had kind of dropped into Class C.
So it was a Class B at one point, and it dropped into a Class C. Okay.
Yep.
And so So what did you like about the deal? Why did you like it?
Well, for starters, it was a Class B that dropped to a Class C, which gives us the opportunity to bring it back
Okay,
to
so
a
it was a
Class
B
B,
dropped to C, and so you
and
think
the
you could
rents reflected that drop too.
what's that?
The rents reflected that drop from
The
B to
rents
C.
reflected the drop from a B to a C. By the way, guys, there's four types of properties that you're going to see. You're going to see A, B, C, and D, right? A, B, C, and D. Obviously, A's the new stuff, D's the hood. Stay out of the freaking hood. Ask me how I know. So this was a B property that dropped to a C, and Nelson and his team felt like they could bring it back up. So what sorts of things? When did you close, by the way?
December 15th.
December. Wow. Very, very, very recent. Okay. So what's the plan for this property? What are you going what were the going in rents? Oh, what was the occupancy first? Occupancy.
92.
92%, which is well occupied. That's considered stabilized. Anything above 90% is considered stabilized. Is there a reason you didn't go with conforming debt like Fannie or Freddie and you went with bank?
Well, so the person who put the deal together, which wasn't me in all fairness,
Right?
had part of the deal already kind of put together, and
Okay.
we were doing a line of credit as well, which you can't do
Okay.
with agency debt.
Okay. All right. So you were doing a line of credit, and you came in as a co-GP, yes?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. What was your role?
I was capital raising.
So you raised capital. Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, if you can raise money, you can pretty much get on any team right now. Okay. And you may be thinking, how do I raise money? It's scary and all that stuff. It's building relationships and talking about a deal or talking about this business. Don't overthink it. And so, okay, let's see what else I want to ask you here. So the deal came from who? Where'd it come from?
From a fellow warrior, Jay
From
Brisman.
another warrior. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long had you been building that warrior relationship before you started talking about a deal?
Not long. I posted on your Facebook page that I was a new warrior. I got
Okay.
people reaching out to
Posted
me.
on the Facebook page that you were a new warrior, and then what?
Yeah, people reached out to me, and
Okay.
Hillary, Hillary, she reached out to me, and
This is
we.
Hillary's deal?
No, it's not. She
Oh.
introduced me to Jay and to a few others.
Okay, so
And so,
Hillary Graves is one of my warriors. She introduced you to other warriors because you did a post in the Facebook group. We've got a Facebook group that's incredibly active for our warriors, by the way.
yeah.
And so you posted. You got people reaching out to you, and then how the deal come to you?
So she introduced me to Jay, and Jay reached out to me, and we did
Okay.
a Zoom call. We hit it off.
Okay,
We
so
each have different
she
strengths,
introduced
and
you
so
to another warrior. You did a Zoom call. You hit it off, and you're off to the freaking races. Okay,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right. What was the going in cap rate on this deal?
I think it was 6.5, about 6.5, maybe six.
Okay, 6.6 and a half. Not terrible.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, and let's see. Let's see what I want to ask you here. Okay, so as you're in the due diligence, were there any surprises that popped up?
That we realized the pool was leaking, not out, but in.
The pool
So
was
that's
leaking.
one.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing that's got to get fixed.
All right.
The
So you got
roofs
to fix
were
that. Not the end of the world. Okay.
the roofs didn't have any problems, but they were a little warped.
The roofs didn't have any problems, but they were a little warped.
A
Okay.
little warped, and some of the HVACs were a little old.
Okay. HVACs were a little old. Okay.
But
What,
other than that, not a lot.
any good surprises?
Sure, yeah. Well, throughout the process, we got 3 rate reductions in the interest rate, so that helped.
3 rate reductions throughout the due diligence process. That is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we
Because-
started at 7.5 and ended up at 6.75. So that
Wow.
helped the
So you
deal a
started
lot.
at 7.5% and ended up at 6.75. And guys, when you've got a multi-million-dollar loan, that is a big freaking deal. That's a beautiful thing, brother. Okay.
Yeah, the electric company came and did some work on the property that saved us about 40 grand. So that was
The
good.
electric company did some work on the property that saved you 40 grand. I don't understand. How could they save you 40 grand?
There was some work that had to be done with some of the electrical equipment that belonged to the city, but we thought was our responsibility.
Ah,
And
so they showed you it belonged to the city and you were able to save the money. Got
yeah,
it. Got it. Love it.
So we took
Fantastic.
that out of our underwriting.
CapEx budget.
Yeah, so that helped. Um,
Okay.
so and
So
then it's
where
a historic part of town, and across the street or not far, there's a museum with
historic part of
huge.
town across the street? There's not far. There's a museum. Uh-huh.
And they announced that they were adding 14 miles of hiking trails and
Adding
outdoor.
14 miles
Yeah.
of hiking trails. Love it.
So
Yeah.
that
See,
helped.
walkability is very important when you're buying an asset. Are there parks nearby? Is there, shopping nearby, theaters nearby, all of that's it's called walkability. So that's all really good stuff. Okay. Love it. Um, let's see. So you raised almost, what did you raise in the deal?
I raised a third of the 1.8, so
You raised
600.
a third of the 1.8. Okay. And how did you raise that? Was it friends and family, or was it people you knew, or did you go out there and hustle? What'd you do?
I mean, it was fast and furious. So it was friends,
Right.
family,
Friends,
business
family,
associates, people I knew
business
from
associates.
my W-2, and
What is
yeah,
your W-2, Nils?
well, I've got a few. So I'm a lawyer and
Oh,
a lobbyist,
you're a
but I'm also a real
lobbyist.
estate.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're one of those guys. Okay.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try not to hold that against you, but okay. Yeah. Fucking with you. All right. Anyway, so what else do you do?
I'm also a lawyer, but I'm also a real estate broker in Florida.
Oh, I didn't know you were an attorney too. Okay, wow. And
Yeah,
you're a real estate
yeah.
broker.
Don't hold
Okay,
that
you got a
against me.
lot of hats you brought to this thing. But
Yeah,
that means you got a decent Rolodex as well. You know a lot of people, which is really helpful.
yeah, that
You
helped.
know, especially when you're raising money. Love it. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else I want to ask you. You got bank debt, 75% loan to value. Oh, did you get any interest only?
We got a year of interest only. Yeah.
A year of interest only. By the way, guys, if it's a nice property, the lender will give you interest only from anywhere from 1 to 5 years, which absolutely helps your returns to your investors, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And all right, let's see here. So, what did you do to create trust quickly with investors? Because you're fairly new to this. I mean, you joined the Warrior program less than 6 months ago. So, what did you do to create that trust? Was it already built, or talk about that for a minute?
A lot of it was already built, but not necessarily
Okay.
when it comes to real estate investment, right? You can
Right.
trust
So
someone on,
they trusted you as a person, but not necessarily as it relates to the real estate. Got
right. I
it.
might trust you in real estate, but maybe not to be a brain surgeon, right?
Gotcha.
So, um, one, you got to know your stuff. You got to know what you're talking about. You got to know the numbers. You have to
Right.
know the information.
You got to know
And
your
one
stuff.
thing, yeah,
Yeah.
you got to know it. And another thing I found was you got to be passionate about it. That
Okay,
helped a
so
lot.
besides just knowing your stuff and knowing your numbers, you got to be passionate. Guys, do you enjoy this, Nelson?
I love it. I'm having so much fun
See,
with this, with the
he
Warrior
said he
program, with
loved
all of
it. When
this.
you love it, work is play, and you're going to have passion. And when you have passion, that's how you influence people,
Yep.
right? Love it, love it, love it, brother. Love it. Okay. Let's see. So talk about your business plan. By the way, every property has a business plan, guys. It's just like a business. An apartment complex has a business plan. And so, you did a syndication, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you did a syndication, and as part of that syndication, the attorney does what's called a PPM, a private placement memorandum. Okay, you're going to learn about that next weekend if you come to the boot camp, because Merrill will talk about that. But in that PPM is your investor presentation, where you're talking about the returns and what the business plan is. So talk about the business plan. What are you doing there?
I mean, so whenever you take over a new complex, the tenants are always a little concerned, right? That you're going to
Right?
raise
When you
rents and
take over
whatever.
complex, the tenants are concerned, right?
You got to show you're not monsters, and
Right.
part of that is starting to work on the exterior capex.
Right. Okay, this is very valuable. You always start work on the exterior so people know you're going to fix the place up because they're expecting the rents to go up. But if they see things are improved, it's not as painful, right? What else, bud?
So renewals that are going on like right away are smaller increases, and as the
So,
exterior
so you're
capex
always going
goes.
to hang on one second, Nelson. So you're always going to have lease renewals, okay? And that's something as an asset manager that you're taking care of. So initially, you had small renewal increases in your renewals.
Right, and then as the capex goes forward, those increases will come to
Yeah,
get to market rate.
as you make more improvements and do more capex, those Oh, but okay, but Matt, he can hear him, but not the people on the phones, right, Matt? Oh, they hear him too? Oh, so I don't have to repeat. Oh, shit. Sorry, guys. That's mind numbing. Well, I'm glad they can hear. We can turn this volume up and maybe they can even hear it a little better. All right. Sorry. Like an echo in here. Yeah. Why don't you turn it up, turn the volume up a little bit here? All right. There we go. Okay. Okay. Thank you. It's a hell of a lot easier on me too. All right. So let's see. Where was I? Okay. Got it. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Okay. Oh, let's see. Um, oh, bear with me here. No, I'm not getting my questions to pop up. Okay, there we go. Here we go. Okay. A lot of questions. You're adding a ton of value today, Nelson. I really appreciate you coming in here for a few minutes,
Yeah,
bud.
man. My pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, so you did the exterior work, you worked on the renewals. What else?
So as tenants leave or new tenants come in, we do some light refurbishment inside the units, the
Okay,
interior
so light
capex,
interiors.
right?
What
New
sorts of things?
floors. So we'll put in a takeout rug and put LPV floors.
Okay, so
Um,
vinyl floor, uh-huh.
yeah, countertops will go from, you know,
You
crappy old stuff
resurface?
to, yeah.
Resurface the
No, well, we're
countertops.
putting, yeah, new countertops.
Oh,
The
new,
cabinets
new,
might
new
get, yeah, we're putting
countertops. Got it.
new ones, yeah. Um,
Okay.
some of the equipment inside the units will need to be changed.
Like
Refrigerators,
appliances,
stoves, appliances,
appliances.
yeah,
Uh-huh. Okay.
yeah,
You paint them.
yep. Paint the
Okay.
inside.
Uh-huh.
Just
Okay.
light stuff, right? Six,
What'd you,
seven
what'd you
thousand
do
per
on the
unit.
exterior?
Yeah, well, obviously the pool's getting fixed,
Oh, the pool. Yeah, of
but
course.
it's winter, so it's not a that's not
Right.
an urgent. There are
You've
some
got time.
places where there's water runoff that needs to be channeled elsewhere.
Mm,
Um,
that's very
Painting
common.
the exterior, yeah,
Did you have some flooding there?
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, you get
There
flooding a
was a
lot. My,
there was an old
my,
water feature that wasn't working,
I know, what kind of water feature?
like a little stream thing, waterfall
Okay.
stream that wasn't
Yeah.
working and was falling
By the way,
apart.
drainage can be a very common dynamic. My daughter's got a triplex up in Tampa, and we're going to have to. It's just a piece of shit. But my maintenance guy's literally been up there for 2 months now, but we're getting there. But he's going to have to put drainage in there as well. There was flooding, and so it's not a big deal. You just got to put drainage ditches in, and you just got to flow the water different directions. So that's very very common. Okay, so light renovations, and so talk about what are you doing to improve the revenue? So what are you doing as far as rents? What does that look like?
So the rents will be brought up to market once we can call it a
And so
Class B,
what's that
right?
increase look like, buddy?
Um, we've got eight different mix of
Oh,
units.
okay,
So
okay.
it goes,
But like,
some of them were at market rate, a few of them were, but most of them are going up about, I want to say about 10% or so.
okay, so 10% increases in rents, which is not insignificant. Okay, and then any other things you're doing to improve revenue?
Well, we're instituting a RUBS program on the utilities, so
RUBS.
that'll help a
Okay,
little
guys.
bit.
So RUBS is a utility bill back program, which stands for ratio utility billing. And anytime you can bill utilities back, it goes right to the bottom line. So it's a beautiful thing. Okay. Okay. So you're doing RUBS. Fantastic. And let's see. What are some? Are there any costs and expenses that you need to control?
Our costs ended up, the underwriting, which was phenomenally done by Jay, came in, it was very conservative. And so our numbers are actually a little bit better.
Mm.
Our insurance came in under what we expected.
Insurance came in low.
Um,
That's fantastic as well. Okay.
yeah. And some of the other, the administrative cost per unit was a little bit lower.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
And actually, at the end, the new management company went and saw it and decided to become investors with us. So
Oh,
that
that's
helped a
really
lot too.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very often a PM company, property management company, gets involved in the ownership of units, and the fact that they wanted to invest in it is a real thumbs up for the deal, obviously. Because I will tell you, we learn more from property management companies about a particular market than anything else that we do. So just how, in general, how's the Warrior program been for you before we cut loose here?
It's been awesome. I got to tell
Yeah.
you, you created a great system, a great
Yeah.
group. I have not met one person that I would not want to meet in person and do business with.
Yeah. Yeah, we thank you, and this is why it's so freaking successful. I don't know how I'm able to attract such amazing people, but we've got. By the way, we have a Warrior event coming up in Sarasota. You probably know about it. There'll
I'll
be
be
hundreds.
there.
They'll be there. Good. There'll be hundreds of Warriors there. We get together for networking because we discovered our most successful Warriors by far were the ones that were the most connected in the Warrior community. So, by the way, guys, if you are interested in applying to my Warrior program, text the word crush to 72345. That's how you apply. And we'll set up a call and you and I will be talking soon. But that's how you apply to the Warrior program. Nels, thanks for coming on, brother. I appreciate you, my friend.
My pleasure, man. Have a great
All
weekend.
right. Yeah, thank you. And we'll have to have dinner sometime here in Miami since we're both in the same place here.
That'd
All
be
right.
great.
Take care, brother. See you later.
See ya.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Nelson. All right. So hopefully that added some value to you looking at a deal like that. And that's really what we do to teach this stuff. But all right, so where was I? I was talking about due diligence. How you're gonna look under every rock. You're gonna check with zoning and codes. Um, Hang on one second here. Let me just do something real quick here. Bear with me 1 second. I want to show you something. Oh, go ahead and get ready to pop up here. Just give me a minute. Don't do it yet. Okay, where are we? Come on. I need to have this done. Okay, here we go. Okay, put that on the screen. So um, I've been talking about this on and off. Next weekend is my freaking boot camp. It's virtual. You can do it at home in your underwear. Okay. For $47, you get all of these freaking bonuses. I mean, it's insane. You get about $10,000 worth of bonuses. You get my document library, which I paid tens of thousands of dollars for. You get my no money down acquisition system, which I teach how to buy properties, no money down. You get building wealth through apartments presentation. No, that's my book. That's my best-selling book that you get. You get the PDF and you get the audio version. You get my capital raising system, how to raise money. You get my how to find deals, like 12 module course. You get my weekly planning process. You get the deal analyzer software. You get my how to create a crush social media course, which is like 10 modules. All this for 47 freaking dollars. Okay, so tell me your excuse. Go to rodsbonuses.com and come next weekend. I promise you'll be glad you came. If you don't love it on Monday, you let me know. I'll give you your money back. I don't mean like it. I mean freaking love it. Okay. It's never happened, but there's a first time for everything. And I've had I think probably close to 18,000 people attend my boot camps. And that's the live ones and the virtual ones. At the live ones, the only complaint we ever get is the food sucked or the room was too cold or something. But on the virtual one, the only complaint we get is the breaks are too short because I do 15-minute breaks every couple of hours because I'm cramming so much information in. But listen, if you're serious about this, no excuses. Get your butt to my boot camp. Soup to nuts. We're going through all of this stuff in great detail. And again, I promise you'll be glad you came. All right, go ahead and throw the whiteboard back up, buddy. So again, you're going to do your due diligence. You're going to make the phone calls. You're going to make sure that that you've allocated for the work that you're going to do to fix up the property. You're going to make sure that that scope of work is accurate. I will tell you, a newbie mistake is people underestimate what it's going to take to fix the property up, and that's a newbie mistake, which I help you avoid. And you're going to make sure that you collect whatever it is that you're going to use to fix up the property. You make sure that the number's accurate and you collect it so you don't run out of money. Again, that's a common mistake. But these are all the sorts of things you do in the due diligence process. You make sure you look under every rock, you check for everything, right? And that's what you're doing. And then asset management, like I said, people think they buy a property and they hire a property manager and their work is done. Boom. No. You're going to be talking to that property management company on a consistent basis. That's what's called asset management. That's why you want someone on the team that maybe has some construction experience, project management experience of any type, so they can manage the property management company. When we have calls literally every week with our management companies on our larger properties, and we regularly have to kick their butts. And that's what you're doing here is you're looking at your weekly KPIs. So what's a KPI here? It's called a key performance indicator, KPI, and that's how you, oh Jesus, my handwriting. Okay, that's how you measure a business, okay? Key performance indicator, okay? Because if it doesn't get measured, it doesn't get improved, right? It's like any business. You're going to measure what's happening in the business. So you're going to look at things like lease renewals. You know, if you've got leases that are coming up, they need to be renewed because your biggest expense is turnover, okay? Besides taxes and insurance, your biggest expense is turnover. So you want to make sure that they renew their leases. So, you know, who's contacting those people to stay? How much rent has been collected, right? How the collections looking? How much do you have in delinquency? Are these important things to know, right? You know, how many people aren't paying? How fast is maintenance getting done? We had a problem with one of my San Antonio assets where the property management company was lying to us. We're actually suing them. They said the maintenance was getting done. It wasn't getting done. We were losing tenants like crazy. You know, how fast are your make-readies getting done? Because it's super important that they get done quick. So, because, you know, you lose rent whenever they're empty, right? Very important. How many units are available to rent? Available. Not empty, available to rent. I mean, they're done, right? Super important. All this stuff. These are KPIs that you're checking. You know, another thing on your leasing process, how many people are visiting the property? Okay. Actually, how many people are calling or contacting that turn into visits, that turn into applications, that turn into actual leases? You got to evaluate every step of this process with the management company. They'll help you with this, but those are called KPIs, key performance indicators. Now, again, your property management company will track all this, and you need to see it. So now let's talk about the top 5 financial formulas that you need to know. You know, we talked about NOI, net operating income, right? You know, and that's and basically what is NOI? It's all income from all sources on the property. So that's rent, that's late fees, that's pet fees, that's parking lot fees, it's all of that. All income subtracted by property expenses, property related expenses. Does not include debt. That's the NOI. It's outside of debt, not debt, okay? That's the NOI. So how do you determine the value once you have the NOI? Okay, there's a formula called ERV, okay? Easiest way to remember it. And this is how you determine the value. Okay, it's this mathematical calculation. If you know what the NOI, so the I is NOI. The R is cap rate. Okay? And then the V is the value or purchase price. If you have any 2 of these, you can get the third. Okay? All right? So to get the value, if you know the NOI and you know what the cap rate is, you divide the NOI by the cap rate. And that's how you would, that's how I was showing you, you know, any work you do to create value, you divide that increase in income, that plus in income, you divide that by whatever the prevailing cap rate is for that particular type of property in that particular area. Okay? So there's, now, if you know what the value or the purchase price was and you know what the NOI is, let's say you see a sale, you know what they're saying is NOI, you know what they paid for it, you can divide the NOI by the value or purchase price and you come up with what they used as the cap rate. Okay, if you know what the cap rate and the value and the purchase price is, you can multiply them and come up with the, divide it this way and come up with the NOI. So if you got any 3 of them, any 2 of them, you can come up with the third. Okay, and so Oops, I'm going the wrong direction here. I've got some notes here I want to look at. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is cash on cash return, COC. So what is cash on cash return? Okay, this is one of the things that an investor is going to want to know. Let's say they put in 100K as an investor. You get an investor put in 100K, very common. Okay, if they get back 10,000 their first year and every year after that, that is a 10% cash on cash return. Okay? So it's the amount of money they get back on an annual basis on their investment. Okay? That's cash on cash. Okay? It's probably one of the most important metrics I look at when I'm looking at a property is that return. Now, I want to know what my dollars are bringing me back in dollars, right? That's cash on cash return. Now, you also need to know what the debt service coverage ratio is. Now, you hear about these DSCR loans now in single family. This very recent phenomenon. They never used DSCR loans in single family before, but it's always been there for multifamily and commercial properties in general. And what it stands for is the property's ability to service the debt, okay? And they don't care what your debt to income is. You know, they're interested in what the property's ability to service the debt is. So let me give you an example of this. And it's an annual calculation, so using annual numbers. So let's say the income, the NOI for a property is 125K for the year, okay? Let's say the debt for the property is 100K per year. So you're multiplying it times 12, whatever these numbers are. That's the debt. That is a 1.25% DSCR, debt service coverage ratio, which is a pretty common minimum that lenders want to see. They want to see a 1.25% debt service coverage ratio. Let's hope that makes sense, okay? Now let's say that your net income is only 100K per year. So your net income is only 100K per year and your debt's 100K per year. That's a 1.0 DSCR. Now let's say your net income is only 85K per year. That's a 0.85% DSCR, right? You get it? If your debt's 100, it's not even covering the debt. Is that important to know? Better freaking believe it, right? That's a problem. Probably doesn't even cover the debt. So this is what lenders want to see. They're not looking at your DTI, debt to income. They don't care how much money you make. They want to make sure the property can cover it if they have to take it back. That's why it's called the debt service coverage ratio. And it's a very important ratio in our business, right? And then, of course, there's loan to value, LTV. You heard Nelson talk about how they got a 75% loan to value. So they were able to borrow 75% of the purchase price on that deal he did with the bank. Okay, that's loan to value. You know, and so in commercial real estate, I'll be honest, 70 to 75% is typical right now. I mean, the reason a lot of operators got in trouble back in the day is they could borrow up to 85% loan to value. So they over leveraged back in the day, which is why there's a lot of deals in trouble right now, which is why there's incredible opportunity right now. So get your ass to my boot camp next weekend, because getting up to speed as fast as possible is super important. By the way, if you're coming to my boot camp, start listening to my podcast, okay? Very important, because you know, it'll demystify and give clarity to some of the stuff I'll be covering. Because again, you want to get up to speed as fast as you can. And you know, and the other reason that deals got in trouble is they were borrowing that money at 85% loan to value, 80 to 85% loan to value, and they had 3% interest adjustable rate. They were adjustable rate interests that are now at 8 or 9%. Forget it, they're done. Okay. Again, this is why there's incredible opportunity right now to get into deals. And a lot of deals going south. So again, if there was ever a time to get into this business, it is right freaking now, because the proverbial you know what's hitting the fan. So let's talk about another example of a rent bump. Let's say you've got 24 units, okay? As an example. Let's say you get a $100 rent bump. Not crazy. I'm going to tell you something. In Tampa, in 2022, so 2022, Rents went up 35%. Okay, 35%. You were paying 1,000, you're now at 1,350. Okay, 100 is not that big a deal. But let's say the average rent right now is 875. Okay, and you get a $100 rent bump. And again, there's four classes of properties. There's A, B, C, and D. And you know by the way, the cap rates are based on risk. Okay, let me mention that. I'm bouncing around a little bit. Cap rate goes up or down based on risk. Okay, that's the number one thing. But so anyway, you've got 24 units and you get a $100 rent bump. Okay, hang on. 2,400. Okay, and that equates to annualized is 28,800 for the year, an increase. So nice annual increase. Now let's say you've got that at a 6 cap. 6 cap. That's the prevailing cap rate. Remember, Nelson bought that place at a 6.5 cap. On a 6 cap, that is a $480,000 increase in value. $500,000 increase on 24 freaking units. Okay? This is why we love this business, guys. All right? We freaking love it. All right. So now let's talk about brokers for a minute. Because I get asked all the time, how do I talk to brokers? You know, people are intimidated. They're like afraid that, you know, they're going to know I'm new. Okay? So what do I say to a broker? How do I start that conversation? So here's a simple script you can use. Hey, my name is Rod Khleif, and you can use your name if you like. I'm just kidding. My name is Rod Khleif, and I'm looking to buy multifamily properties in your market. You know, I'm focused on value add deals in the 50 to 200 range, whatever it is, in the 10 to 50 range, whatever it is. You know, I'm building a team, or I'm a member of a team that's already got some units. And by the way, guys, that's one of the advantages of networking in this business and finding people that are doing this business. That's why my Warrior program is so freaking successful, because most of those 300,000 units are done between warriors. Okay, and so if you can go to a team like Nelson did, and he raised money for that deal, that's how he got on that team, and he's part of the general partnership. He's one of the operators in that deal. But if you can find a deal, that's the number one thing. If you can find a great deal, or you can raise money, you're in. You can join a team. And that's why the Warrior program is so successful. But you can do the same thing. Go to a local meetup group, go to a real estate meeting, find people that are doing this business, and say, hey, if I bring you a deal or I bring you money, can I work with you? And I'm going to tell you, they will tell you yes most of the time. And that way, when you go to a broker, you can say, we own 300 units, we own 500 units, we own 1,000 units, whatever that team owns, and you've got instant credibility, okay? So that's something you can do with brokers. All right. Okay. And don't over-explain yourself when you're talking to a broker. Don't keep talking. Say, this is what I'm looking for. You don't have to justify. And you just need to sound competent and confident. And I'm going to tell you, confidence comes from competence, which is why you should learn this business as fast as you can, because the deals are coming. And that's why I'm telling you, listen to my podcast. Even if you're coming to my boot camp, start listening to that, because you want to get up to speed as fast as you can. And then when they send you a deal, a broker sends you a deal, you got to respond. Even if it's a no, you say, hey, thanks for sending me this deal. Here's why it didn't work for you. And you give them feedback. And I'm going to teach you how to do that feedback next weekend at the boot camp. I'm going to teach you how to do a fast due diligence process on a deal, although it'll probably take you all day the first time you do it. You'll get to the point where you can do it in 15 minutes. But then you circle back to them and you tell them why the deal didn't work. That's how you build credibility. That's how you get on their short list. Now, let me say this to you as well. You do not need to live in that market. I buy properties all over the country. You build, boots on the ground through your team. Your property management companies, your eyes and ears. Your brokers are basically your scouts, and your inspectors tell you the truth. They're your truth tellers. And you don't have to be there every day. You just need the right people in place, and that's how you scale this business, okay? But I own properties in 7 states. Now, I don't recommend that for you when you start. I want you to become an expert in one market, but that's how you scale. Um, so now let's talk about deal structure for a minute, okay? All right, let's talk about deal structure. So you understand how a syndication works, for example. I'll give you a syndication deal structure. Typically, what you're going to do is you're going to offer your LPs or your limited partner investors, your LP passive investors, what's common is they get a preferred return. It's called the preferred return. And that can be anywhere from 5 to 10%, okay? Now, that preferred return gets paid before anything else. And then so they'll get that first, okay, pref first. And that's of any profit, 5 to 10. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's what they get based on their investment. Okay, they're going to get that preferred return first, and then there's a split. And that split can be 50-50 all the way up to 70-30. If you see a higher split than that, it's a scary deal. I wouldn't do it. But I've done tons of deals at 50-50. My last deal actually was 70-30 because it's such a beautiful property. But the investors get there. So my last deal, I believe, was a 7% pref. So they get that off the top, and then a 70-30 split. Now that split is also called the promote. Okay? Just so you know the verbiage. Split equals promote. Okay? So that's a very high level structure on how a syndication is structured, and so your investors get paid first, they get the pref, and then before you participate in the profits, okay? And after the preferred return is paid, then you split the remaining cash flow. Like I said, anything from 50-50 to 60-40 to 70-30. Typically, the investors will get a larger share because they're putting up the capital. You're bringing the deal, the team, the execution, and that's how these deals are structured. And then when you sell the property, the profits are split the same way. Investors get paid their pref first. It's a very fair structure. And it's why investors love multifamily. They get predictable returns. They also benefit from the tax benefits and the upside. And they get to build wealth, and you get to build wealth, and you're building it without any of your own money. So let's recap what we covered today. One thing, you don't need your own money, okay? You don't need perfect credit. You don't need to quit your job. You don't need to do this alone. Now you need an education, okay? And you need the right team, and you need to take action. And then you've got to be consistent, okay? This business can absolutely change your life. And you see Nelson that just came in. He joined the Warrior Program in August, okay? And this has changed thousands of my students' lives. It's changed mine. If you're willing to do the work. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's a lot to learn, and that's why you're not going to do it all. You're going to join a team, and you're going to pick what you're good at. You're going to play to your strengths, and you're going to hire, align, or partner for your weaknesses. That's how this business is done. But you want to learn to do this the right way. Now, if you want to learn the right way, I want to invite you to come to my 2-day virtual boot camp, and I go deep on all this. We cover market selection, team building, deal analysis, raising capital, financing, syndication, joint venture, due diligence, asset management, and you'll see real deals, real numbers. There'll be case studies. There'll be panels of my Warrior coaching students talking about, taking questions and answering questions. You'll walk away with a clear roadmap. So if this resonated with you, go ahead and throw it back up on the board, Raul. If this resonated with you, go to Rod's bonuses, get the freaking $10,000 in bonuses. That's conservative, actually. All these things you get, just go to Rod's bonuses, sign up for the boot camp, and because I encourage you to take action. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer, honestly, and that's why I priced it where I did. And I don't sell anything there, by the way. I don't sell anything in that boot camp. It's just training. It's not a big sales pitch. I'll invite you to set up a call with my team to talk about my Warrior program if you're interested, but no obligation to do that. You will leave with the blueprint and the roadmap of what to do. But the deal of a lifetime comes around every single week if you recognize it and you're willing to act. That's the bottom line. And so, if you guys have any questions, I can take some questions for a couple of minutes here. I'll take some questions. I went through that a little faster than I'd planned. Oh, you can throw that off. Take that off now. Thanks. Yeah, if you've got any questions, fire away. I'd love to take some questions for a few minutes. I just started doing these Saturday morning trainings, and the first two were, oh my God, they were terrible. This is a little better, but I'm starting to get my oomph around me and how to do these things properly and time them and everything. And I want to bring warriors in. I want to bring case studies in. I want to bring all that stuff in. So if you've got any questions, fire away. I'd love to take them. I covered a lot of stuff, and I'll be covering different things every Saturday. I'm going to do these every Saturday. But again, guys, come to my freaking boot camp. Go to rodsbonuses.com. You'll be so freaking glad you did. But anyway, if anybody's got a question, I'd love to take it. Anything on the phones there? No? Okay. What are the best? Okay, what are the best markets to invest in? I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you the markets I'm in, the 7 markets I'm in. I'm in Florida, of course, Georgia, different. Now, parts of Atlanta are a little sketchy, but I'm outside of Atlanta, North Carolina, South Carolina, Indiana, Ohio, and Texas. My most assets are in Texas, and I love Texas, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston. So that's where I like to invest. All right, I'm not getting a lot of questions here, but no question is stupid, by the way, unless you ask it 5 times. Let me just say that to you. But don't overthink this. Raising money is not that big a deal. It's just building relationships. It's adding, and I go into a lot. One of the bonuses is my how to raise money thing, and I go into all the different ways. You got a question?
Got a question from Billy. He said,
Billy.
Where can a beginner start? Where can a beginner
Billy, where can a beginner start? Get your butt to my boot camp. Hello. It's next weekend, dude. It's $47. And, even the bonuses alone are worth that. And I mean, they're worth $10,000 in bonuses. So come there. Go to rodsbonuses.com. But the bottom line is you got to educate yourself first because you got to build your competence. Once you have competence, then you'll be confident and you'll be able to raise money, talk to investors, talk to brokers. But it starts with competence. And I mean, if you're not going to come to my boot camp, fine, go to YouTube University or try to learn on chat. But I promise you, if you come to the boot camp, you'll get it soup to nuts. And that's the other thing. I spend time on mindset and psychology. The first thing we do at my boot camp next weekend is goal setting on steroids. Because how do you get anything if you don't know what it is? It starts with goal setting. So, you got to figure out what you want. You got to create that burning desire. You got another one?
Got one from RPB.
RPB.
Do you watch churn rate in the cities you want to invest in?
Do I watch churn rate in the cities I want to invest in? I'm not sure what you mean by churn rate, RPB. We look at, if you're talking about tenants moving in and out, that's more deal specific. Okay. Now I will tell you one thing that I look for when I'm looking for deals that I didn't tell you. There's A, B, C, and D, both markets and assets. A, B, C, and D markets, A, B, C, and D assets. I look for a C property in a B area or a B property in an A area that I can build up. Just like Nelson was talking about. He had a property that had gone to a C but was in a B area and he's bringing it up. That's what I look for. Okay. Now as far as churn, if you're talking about tenants moving in and out, that's pretty deal specific. It's property specific. It's how well their property is being managed, how well it's being taken care of. And that's what creates that tenant turnover, if that's what you mean by churn, brother. Okay. Let's see, Nick, would a GC license be an asset for a GP? Absolutely, Nick. If you've got, and I'm trying to get my son to get his GC license so we can actually build properties. A GC license would be a real asset, Nick, because you know how to evaluate a property as to the work that it needs, okay? You know how to tell the GP team what things are really going to cost, and you can manage that value add process when like what Nick's doing, where they're fixing up the interiors, they're doing some exterior work. You can manage that process with the property management company. A huge asset. Gem Group, you just get on a call with my Warrior program. I've got a couple of different options as far as the cost there, so I don't want to get into that. But just get on a call. You'll leave that call better than you got on it. And we check you out. We don't take everybody. That's how you apply. Is you text CRUSH to 72345. We don't take everybody. You check us out. We check you out. And if we feel like it's a fit, you're off to the races. If it's not, you leave the call better than you got on it. You got any more questions over there? Okay, if you guys got any more questions, I'll take them. Looks like I'm going to add some stuff to this presentation next weekend, but to have it go a little longer. But we ran almost 2 hours.
He has a clarifying question.
Okay, RPB, go ahead.
I meant the rate that new construction gets filled up.
Okay, the rate that new construction gets filled up. Okay, well, that's called absorption, and you got to really pay attention to that. How many new units are coming into a market? Because I will tell you, a lot of stuff was built when things were going crazy these last few years, and so there's some markets that suffered a little bit, like San Antonio. I've got assets there that suffered. Nashville got an asset there that suffered a little bit, but it's going to come back, and so you just got to track that because we've become a renter nation, and people have to have a place to live, and of course, we've had all that illegal migration as well. But bottom line is, there's a huge shortage of units, and of course, buying a house now is so ridiculously expensive. Trump's working to try to make that better. We're talking about 40, 50-year mortgages, which they've had in Europe forever, and so that'll all help. But until then, people have to rent, and so these are the kinds of things that you track when you get into this business. And there are websites you can use. Let me give you some websites to check demographical information and occupancy and things like that. One of them is bestplaces.net. And you just go in there and play around, bestplaces.net. Another one is city-data.com. Another one is datausa.io. And then, of course, there's census.gov. Now, these are all websites that you can check that information out, RBB, and learn. Sorry about my handwriting. That's actually better than it used to be. But that's how you check out what the occupancy rate is in a particular market, so you can track that absorption. Okay. But I'm going to tell you something. The reason this is so exciting is they haven't built anything for the last couple of years because capital markets dried up, because the rates went up. So it goes through peaks and valleys like that. We were at a peak. It's going to hit a valley as far as construction because people weren't able to raise money to do new construction. So that's going to drive rents up. So that's just how this market works. Let's see here. Let's see. Latavius, is FHA still a viable option for those new to real estate? Sure, if you're going to move in a property, Latavius, now that's single family, okay? That's a single family strategy. You're not going to use that to buy an apartment comp. Although you could buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, 2, 3, or 4 unit, which is residential multifamily. And if you're going to live in it, you can absolutely use FHA. Now, my daughter just bought a triplex up in Tampa. I don't know if you heard me say it's a real piece of crap, but I love her, and it's in an area that's going to go really well. She's going to make a lot of money on it, but she's living in it. She had to move in it. So yeah, you can absolutely do that to get started, Latavius. Fantastic. Go for a fourplex in Atlanta. I love it, brother, but you got to move into it. Okay, that's the key. And you can go FHA, but there's also conventional. Now FHA is 3% down, but you're going to pay a mortgage insurance premium. Conventional is 5% down, but your payment will be a little less. So it depends on how much cash you have to put down. Of course, I help my daughter with hers, but you can get sellers to pay some of the closing costs. Sellers can pay some of the costs. So there's lots of ways to structure these things to minimize your down payment. But yeah, that's a great way to get going. Latavius, good luck with that. Any other questions? Anything on the phones there? No, we're good. Okay. All right, guys. Well, if I haven't got any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. I hope you got some value. I hope you get your ass to my boot camp. I promise you'll be glad you did if you do. And if you want to check out my Warrior program, again, okay, Latavius. Well, talk to a loan broker there, buddy. You're working with less than $20,000 as down payment. You might be challenged to find a fourplex. You might have to do a duplex or a triplex, but talk to a loan broker to see what you might be able to do there, my friend. All right, guys. Well, listen, have a great day. I know I'm going to see a bunch of you next week at my boot camp, and I appreciate you suffering through this today. And again, I'm going to be doing this every Saturday to give people an overview of the business. So have a great day, my friends. Take care. Let's see. I don't know how to shut it off here. I'll let you do it, bud. Take care, guys. We'll see you.